Hi everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in healthcare IT. And today's guest is Mike Noshay. He's the founder and chief strategy officer at Verinovum. Welcome, Mike.
Grateful to be here.
Yeah, so, we've talked to you before. I love your passion for data. You're all about data quality.
You just call me a super nerd right now. Is that what you're saying? I'm okay with that.
I'm jealous. It's all right. Give us a little background on why that's important.
So I've got a personal reason and then a business reason. Personal reason, I started my career as a Teach for America Corps member, and I saw time and again that my students in underprivileged communities ended up getting evicted from their homes. So I dug a little bit deeper to figure out why. And more often than not, it was because their families ended up in medical treatment facilities where they got bankrupted. And that crushed me. So my initial foray into the healthcare vertical was to try to take a look at why that was happening, why those pathways of care weren't better informed. And that led me to the place in space that it wasn't necessarily that the pathways didn't exist, that the data from one place to the next wasn't traversable. And you could look at this and say that's a social determinants of health challenge. I believe that's a part of the problem, but the majority of the payment and cost in healthcare right now is still through transactions tied to medical practicing facilities. And we don't really think about it, but the number of malpractice suits that come about are off the charts.
Yeah.
The data that is accessible to you, every time you go to the doctor, you see a chart, and that chart is not comprehensive. It doesn't give a full picture of who you are, where you were seen. And to make matters even worse, when all these new technologies have come out to try to put that into practice, whether it's artificial intelligence or case management, intervention, they're all operating on half full, oftentimes faulty content. That has very grave consequences for the next tier of digital innovation.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What are those ramifications? I mean, you talked about a very personal experience with those students. That's powerful. But what is the ramification of poor quality data in healthcare?
So there's the capitalistic version that's looked at the ebb and flow of many vendors that have come into prominence and then fell off the face of the earth. IBM being the most recent with Watson Health.
Amazing, huh?
We saw Google Health come out recently with an article titled Data Cascades. Went under the radar, but they essentially recognized that the quality of the data being used to promote their artificial intelligence algorithms were dramatically skewing the outcomes that they were intended to drive. This is in part because their developers were using contrived data sets, and when they went out into the wild, they didn't actually work. And it's not just the technology that's engaging with this information and the promise of that big tech failing, it's also the fact that it's hurting patients.
Right.
And it's not enabling people that are really interested in giving the best care. Your providers, your case managers, and payers, the best information to make sure that you can be your healthiest person.
Wow. So why is it so hard to get the data right? I mean, Google has really smart people and they know data. Like, why is it so hard to get the data right in healthcare?
I won't claim to have the answer for this because nobody does. I can tell you that there has often been a desire to solve for these problems with point solutions. That means I'm going to solve for a diabetic patient population using a specific algo and a really cool new visualization workflow, which is awesome. And I'm very happy to see those innovations continue to exist. But none of the people building those solutions have paused and said, what's the reality of the data at our disposal to drive those innovations? Because if they took that pause, they'd realize that the data on me still lives in on average 6 different EHRs, and none of those EHRs comply with the standards, and they're all slight derivatives of what their parent companies originally suggested. And even if they were able to pull all that information together, mapping it in a way that brings a full picture for me at scale is near impossible unless that's all you think about. You can't think about the case management interventions and the AI solutions as well as the nitty-gritty bits and bytes. It's just a different type of thinking about these really hard problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I talked with your colleague, I think that we at least have the data there to start understanding, is it good or is it bad? Can we pull it in from these different systems? But I think it's powerful. And so there's a lot of really great things that feel like they're on that horizon, right? That we've finally have the data and we can do some cool stuff with it. But why haven't we seen those widely implemented yet? And kind of why aren't we seeing the benefits of that yet?
So I've got an unpopular opinion here.
Okay.
In fact,
We
we
like
just
those.
put out a webinar 2 weeks ago called Self-Actualization of Big Tech's Healthcare Vision.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, and what we challenge the whole time is saying Microsoft, Google, Amazon, IBM, Apple all started with the end. Their AI developers, their workflow developers had something cool. They had seen from the outside challenges in their personal life, but weren't at the grassroots level looking at how EHRs were built, how the clinical workflows exist. And as a result, they had this bold claim, give us the data and we will conquer all. We'll run our magic AIs, it'll clean it all up, and that'll be great. Unfortunately, we've heard and seen firsthand from 3 out of those 5, they've never been able to do it. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent on these platforms,
Wow.
and they couldn't solve for the bits and bytes data quality issues.
Interesting. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's interesting that you've worked with so many to clean up the data, to aggregate the data from all these systems. I mean, that's what Verinovum does, right? And what's been the impact once you finally do that? You know, what do they see once you get it right?
Yeah, so it depends on the organization. We like to say our first priority is understanding our clients' priority use cases. And that means at a payer, it could be you've got a case management division that wants to get access to data more timely in a clean state, so they could impact PM $250 for enrolling them much sooner. That's a big return.
Right.
Or it could be that they want to apply more data to their risk adjustment teams. That way they could improve their RAF scores. That could have many millions of dollars of impact. You could do that across an entire business division. And depending upon the size of your organization, financially, it could be anywhere from 5 million to 200 million. We had a client the other day say, you know, if we could only get clean, timely information on our colorectal cancer patients, we could save on average $200,000 per person. Because when you go across the different stages of cancer, they get very expensive. And that's just the financial return.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Think
the
about
patient
human
probably
impact.
gets a great
The
impact
human
too.
impact to this too is when you have that timely, complete, quality information that you trust, then it's not a question. You get to take those people that really care, the case managers, the doctors, the nurses, to do their job the best they can because the tools around them are trustworthy. And that's all we're about. We do none of that last mile intervention. We have all the respect in the world for the people creating the tools and the people employing the tools. But you have to have high quality, complete, trustworthy data in order for it to make any sense.
Yeah, powerful message. Well, where can people go to learn more about Verinovum?
We're all over social media, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow us at verinovum.com as well, and we hope to chat with you some more.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you sharing. I always learn so much from you about data and really the challenge of data. I mean, it's the challenge and the opportunity. So I think that's what's so exciting. And thanks everyone for watching. If you want to find more great health IT content like this, be sure to check out at healthcareittoday.com. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.